Well, good evening, folks. I hope you're well. It's Saturday. Um, this video, I really don't want to come across as, or I don't want the video to be depressing. I just want to throw this topic open to debate, really, and put a few of my own thoughts to it to see what you think. Because often I'm not an autocrat. I generally try and get a consensus of opinion. My mind is pretty made up, quite frankly, about what my opinions are on the topic. Forgive me, but I've got a bit of a sore throat, so I'm keeping moist using my my favourite little mug, which has got dogs all over it. What a surprise! Anyway, that's like a bit of tea, is that? It isn't, I hope, a depressing topic for you, but I heard a great song a few months back. It's I think it was from Boy George, quite frankly. Um, I think the song was called Unfinished Business. When he's talking about, I think, a friend of his who was in intensive care dying, quite frankly. And part of that song, he says, he's talking about this friend, and as you know, Boy George is gay. I'm not, but I don't, whatever floats your boat. But he was talking about unfinished business that he and his friend had, his boyfriend. Whether it is his boyfriend or his friend, I'm unsure. But he was talking about he's a wonderful boy, good with his hands, sensitive. These were the words of the song. And they had so much unfinished business. And it's a wonderful, wonderful song. It's by Boy George, called Unfinished Business. But one of the phrases that Boy George used in this song, it absolutely brought it home, really, when he said, dying, how dare you, almost saying, how dare you die? What a selfish thing to do is to die. And he obviously meant dying so young, which I think this young man may have done. I am unsure. It's a true story. Sensitive boy, good with his hands. That just says a lot to me, that he's doing this tribute, singing this song about his friend. Unfinished business. And isn't that always the case? We all have unfinished business. I've said in the past that, most of us, even if we live to a ripe old age, quite frankly, go to meet our maker, or transcend, if you like, with our song still in us. Because this world, quite frankly, again, in the words of Vincent van Gogh, Don McLean, talking about Vincent van Gogh, he says some people are just too beautiful for this world. And that's very, very true. I've met some real dicks, some a-holes in my time, trust me on this. And I've met some absolutely, I don't know if you've ever done this, wonderful people, but I've met people, I crave their company. Man or woman, I am so jealous and saddened that I don't get to spend more time with them, and yet they may be married, they may have other things, they're not easily accessible, these people, but I crave to be with them. And I've met perhaps 3 people in my life like that. 2 of them were male and 1 was female, quite frankly, because they're fascinating, beguiling, so different and so on my wavelength. And yes, I suppose we do have more than one soulmate in our lives. I think we have many soulmates. And these 3 people that I can talk about or remember in my life, I can see them almost like I saw them yesterday. And I often think about them. I don't contact them anymore, of course. I've moved on in my life, and I hope they're alive. I don't know. I don't stalk people. I don't go to Facebook or LinkedIn or anything like this trying to find people, but I just remember them because they made such a difference to my life. One of them probably is for certain dead by now. He was getting on. And that was a chap called Sir Geoffrey Tuttle, who changed my life quite dramatically. But we are very arrogant, aren't we, as human beings, when we think that we have a right to live a ripe old age. Because the tomorrow isn't promised to anybody in yesterday's history, but now is the present. And that's so true, because now is the present. It depends, wordplay, I suppose, but what you do right now makes all the difference. What you did last week, or last minute, or lastminute.com, or months ago, doesn't matter. Does it? Because everything you've done, said, acted upon, done, has got you to where you are right this second, listening to my voice on this video. Everything. Think about it. The last breath you took enabled you to get onto this video. Because if you didn't breathe, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's really that final. And death is such sweet sorrow for many people. It gives them a release of pain, heartbreak, pain emotionally and physically. And how very dare we die, leaving those who love us behind. It seems, doesn't it, in the words of Boy George, such a selfish thing to do. But it's equally perceived by the government that it is a disgrace that we die, because they just want us to be continuing like wringing every last drop of moisture from a damp rag. You will go to work and you will pay your taxes because you belong to me, the government. Because they own us lock, stock and barrel. They truly do. You think you're free, but you're not free. Freedom is, as the songs say, another word for nothing left to lose. That's what freedom is. You know, when you've got nothing left to lose, when you don't care about anything anymore, and it's just, you know, that is when you are free. Free of the obligations that you have in your life towards other people, never mind the obligations to yourself. And when Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true," you truly do have to look after yourself. Because, quite frankly, when the chips are down, there's only one person, quite frankly, loves you how you should be loved, and that is you. And it's arrogant and stupid to think that there are other people out there who would love you like you can love you. Only you can love you like you. Because you've got to be your own best friend. But so many of us are our own worst enemy. We have a self-destruct button. We smoke, we drink, we do dangerous things, we do stupid things. We do crazy things. We endanger our lives in so many ways. And then we expect when things go tits up that other people will pick up the pieces. People with addictions such as alcoholism, which is a self-imposed addiction. There's no two ways about it. It's such a selfish thing to be an alcoholic. It's entirely selfish. It's all about me, 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 or you. Bugger the consequences when you're an alcoholic. Because being an alcoholic doesn't just affect you. And this isn't a video about alcoholism. It's about taking responsibility for your own actions, yourself. You see, alcoholism, compared to all the other addictions, is the most destructive thing, seconded only by, I suppose, drug addiction like heroin and others, but heroin in particular, or crack, as they say. Another self-indulgent drug. Yes, it gives the recipient escapism for a short while, but at what cost? But alcoholism, in my mind, is a selfish thing. It is. I'm often left wondering or pondering why it is that some people you can go and have a drink with are absolutely fine. Couple of beers, my type of guy, my type of girl, nice, nice beer. And then they say, I'll just have a nightcap. You think, okay. And they'll just have a shot, just one shot of whiskey or tequila, something in the spirit world. And you see them change like that, like schizophrenia. They were a happy drunk, happy tipsy, until they got the spirit inside them. And then they go absolutely barking mad. They suddenly become unreasonable, erratic in their behaviour, unjustifiably so. And now I know, in my own sweet way, why they call them the spirits. And I really avoid people who are spirit drinkers, whether it be vodka or, if it's not beer or wine, just keep me away from people who drink other things, because it's the spirits that do the damage. They truly are evil, because they turn relatively happy, jovial people who are quite content to be four sheets to the wind, as they say, into raving lunatics who then become violent, aggressive, etc. I'm not sure if you've experienced this. It's the only time I've had serious problems with people in my life in bars and a restaurant on a couple of occasions, is when they decide to just have a nightcap, yes, of a spirit, and then you see the true nature of the beast as it raises its ugly head. And it's a tipping point in them, isn't it? They're already tanked up and they're manageable, but then they have a couple of shots of whiskey or the spirits. But society makes it almost selfish. It's absolutely illegal, for example, in Great Britain. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it's illegal. It's illegal technically to take your own life. Well, I question those laws. Okay, because I think it's my life. I'll do what I want with it. But the reality is, folks, we don't belong to ourselves, it seems. We belong to the government under the birth certificate, tax-paying unit system, the national insurance number that they issue us. Why is it illegal? Well, it's illegal not because they love us, that's for sure. It's illegal because we're depriving the government. It's like the final act of defiance when you do top yourself, if that's your thing. It's the best thing you can do. If you're feeling that way, take solace. It's illegal. Well, maybe it's the first time you've ever broke the law in your life. But what a way to do it, is to deprive the government of a tax-paying unit, and that's what you and I are. And that's the only reason the government are interested in our suicide, making it illegal. I think it's a disgrace they make it illegal. What does it matter? We have such arrogance and expectation in our life that we, if we're normal, health, etc., why we expect to live to 70 years, which is 20, 40, 60 and a 10, 70. About 70 years. We're doing batting above the average if we go over 70 nowadays, with the wicked ways the government try to expedite our demise after we stopped becoming workers, because they don't want to pay our pensions out, that's for sure. So they're quite happy if people retire and then drop dead. You see, the Chinese used to say, man is like a bicycle. When he stops, go forward. Bike stops, he falls over. like man stops working, he fall over. They don't care if you fall over when you're not a tax-paying unit anymore. You don't pay income tax. You are just, thank God he's made way, or she's made way, for the next one to come along, because it's a production line. I'm sure we're in the soul recycling business of this world unless we know how to handle the next dimensions. But it is a sensitive boy good with his hands, with a selfish thing to do. But don't be too hard on people who decide to check out. You see, a lot of people are scared of dying. And it's the biggest statistically, if you note and do a survey out there in La La Land, if you ask people what's their biggest fear in life, they won't say losing a loved one. They won't say anything altruistic. They'll say, I'm scared of dying. Because, to be quite frank, despite all the evidence and what we think is coming back to us all, nobody's come back and said what it's truly like with any authority. There's a couple of good stories, but so many are contradictory, aren't they? And the great thing is, in the words of Christopher Hitchens, a great friend and a fantastic author who's since died of esophageal cancer, he was a complete atheist. And when he was dying, and he knew he was dying, he was terminal in intensive care. And and his friends used to say, "What does it feel like? Don't you wish? What you going to do? Are you going to become religious, or do you believe in God, or what is it? What you?" And Christopher said, "I really don't know what to expect, but I love surprises." You see, if you die as an unbeliever, non-believer, if we do have this all-forgiving God, Creator, what's there to stress about? If you've been a good soul, nothing. Because God loves all his little children, it seems. But I'd often wondered, even, as a child, yes, even as a child, why we get so upset when people die young. Only the good die young, quite frankly, it seems. If you look at the famous people in life, even if you like, some of the most wonderful people I know die young, have died young. And as I said before, you get busy living or you get busy dying. But don't be too critical of people who are suicidal and become suicide victims. The ones who jump in front of trains mean to do it. Those who don't, and there's many who don't. I mean, being in the medical world myself, I've had to deal with attempted suicides and suicides that have worked and suicides that have worked without a doubt. You can separate very easily the ones who mean to do it to the ones who are attention-seeking for various reasons and have an emotional problem or domestic crisis in their life that they can't face anymore. It's not so much, because if people mean to do it, believe me, the meaning ones will do it. And some of them think they mean it and then change their mind, and it's a little bit too late. And you do get repeat offenders. Not him again, not her again. Can't take this seriously, and these are psychiatric cases, of course, because it's a cry for help. And we strut around in our lives, folks. When things are good, they're good. When things are very good, they're very good. But when things are bad, this is when we have a problem coping. Especially if the bad things are new. You've never had it so good. For sure, that's fine. That's bloody marvellous. But what happens is if you've never had it so bad? How would you cope? What if your world collapsed tomorrow by the news that you receive? she or he's having an affair, you've lost your job, everything in your life has gone wrong like a deck of cards. Yeah. But everything is recoverable, folks, providing you got your health and you're still ticking and you have the ability to work and you've got all your faculties, marbles. That's fine, but sometimes tragedy does happen. And we talk a lot in our videos, or my videos anyway, we envy the 1%ers, but they have their share of tragedy. Despite all the money and the wealth, it can't buy them happiness. It can't buy them another heartbeat or another breath. And they do have their tragedies. Look at the Gettys. The tragedies that some families are having to endure, and they think it's a curse on the whole family. We're cursed. I say, well, it may be. It's karmically, and I'm a huge believer in karma. Somebody has to pay the ferryman, don't they? The Grim Reaper. A couple of silver coins. They truly do. And pay now or pay later, but you will pay. Okay? And if you don't pay, your family will pay somewhere along the line. And some of these families, as rich as they are terribly cursed by the devious deeds that their predecessors have done and their ancestors. And they're coming home to roost like you can't believe. There is a reckoning, or an acceleration towards a reckoning happening right now. We're perhaps immune to this because such tragedies are never really reported in the press. They're heard second, third, fourth hand, of course. Sometimes you get one in the paper, it's quite dramatic, and you go, ha, bloody ha. But don't be too hard. Yeah, but for the grace of God go you. Don't be too hard and quick to judge the people who do commit suicide and those who support it being an illegal act. I see no reason why suicide should be illegal. Not at all. Except the governments, as I said before, don't want you to snuff out a tax-paying unit. It costs the government money, and whatever costs the government money without their permission is deemed illegal. You're breaking the law. And anybody who's got life insurance commits suicide, that life insurance becomes invalid. And that's how they really, really stick it to those families. The families, don't you think they've lost enough? Because the insurance companies don't give a rip. We get upset when people die young. Oh, didn't have much of a life, did he? Oh. Well, I would rather have 25 absolutely fantastic bloody years of couldn't be better than 50 years of mediocrity any time of the week. I am 58 this year myself, and I ain't looking forward to the next 30 if I were allowed them. I really am not. Because, folks, 25 plus we start to fall to pieces, as fit as you might think you're fit, as well as you are. I used to feel sorry for old people when I was 25. I truly did. I thought, that's, oh God, no, I don't. I was dreading becoming old. And most people would say to me, well, 58 this year, that's not old, really. Well, if this is how bad it is at 58 for me, I really don't want to be 70. I don't. But has suicide crossed my mind? A couple of times in my life it has, to be brutally honest. It has. Not lately, but it has. Before I was married, quite frankly. And, you've got to have something to live for. But some people, folks, they wake up in the morning in pain. the uncertainty that this might be their last day will drive them scatty until tomorrow, which is just another day of having uncertainty again. Particularly those people with terminal diseases who are not allowed to euthanize. It's like they want you to suffer. Nope, 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 it's illegal, you can't do it, nope, nope, nope. And I think it's a disgrace that governments would even enter into the debate about whether someone is allowed to have a nice little piece of poisonous chocolate in a cup of tea and say goodbye to their relatives in the comfort of their own home, with dignity. In defence of dignitas, I really do think it's such a personal thing. The decision should have nothing to do with government or law. Because under the law of laws, we should be able to LORE, law, which is natural law. It should be up to us, shouldn't it? Not the government. At what stage did it become the government's decision that you live or die, apart from the way they used to kill you indiscriminately anyway, by dropping bombs on people or sending you to war or poisoning you with sodium fluoride in inoculations? It's a slow kill for them, but they get away with it. I didn't give permission personally for them to drop chemicals all over me every day from the skies called chemtrails. I didn't give them permission to poison my drinking water for me and my family by putting sodium fluoride and chlorine in my drinking water. I didn't give them permission, quite frankly, to inoculate me as a child, giving me a ticking time bomb that can go off at any time in my life, giving me cancers. I didn't give these bastards any authority on how they risked my life. But who do they think they are? We have very few choices in life, and the less choices the better as far as the governments are concerned. But I tell you something, if you want to die with a smile on your face, the best way out is to do that to the government and go out in style at your own time and your own choosing, in your own way. Well, how do you do that? Suicide isn't a decision to take lightly, and most people, if not all of the people that know you and love you, don't want you to do it. It depends on your circumstance. Do you have a physical problem, or do you have a mental problem, or a bit of both? Maybe you do have a terminal illness, and I'm sorry if you do. But life is a terminal illness. We are born to die. And you only have to think about the little mayfly that starts its life as an egg it sinks down to the bottom in the mud of a river. And then the sun shines, the little mayfly egg hatches, and it becomes a little nymph wiggling around the bottom of a river. And if it survives not being eaten by a fish or whatever, it'll go up, and this little beetle thing will crawl onto the mud on a summer's evening, along with other thousands upon thousands of little mayfly bugs, and it'll fly for the first time in its life and last. And while it's flying in a swarm of others, brothers and sisters, they'll mate. And once that little mating event has happened, okay, the mayfly will die and tumble into the water. Just that time, just that evening. It's a one-hit wonder. But what a hit, what a wonder. And the mayfly will drop into the river only to be eaten by a passing trout or any other fish. The mayfly. It's born to die, but the females will lay the eggs, and when they've done their little egg laying, the fertilized eggs, they too will die. It is such a short lifespan, but boy do they know how to live and die. And we're here to live and die. It's what we do in the middle that counts. Can you think back of a family who used to live in the Old Kent Road, 36 Old Kent Road, 200 years ago? No. You have no idea who they were, have you? Nor have I. You see how relevant we all are? But I can guarantee there's someone lived in that house in the Old Kent Road, a family who thought at the time that this is all there is. They had the same worries, they had the same concerns about their health and their longevity and their children and their husbands and wives. And it's all so temporary. Its fact is we're all mayflies. And how we die is almost in our hand. The mayfly, you could argue, is a perfectly natural way to die. It's what nature wants. Well, if nature wants, nature is very unfair if that's the key then, because human beings die in such obscene circumstances where it's unnatural, it's not fair. You see, this is the problem with human life. It's the same in animal life, I suppose. You know, with birds or lizards. Every day is a fresh challenge for them, for their survival. They don't think for a second about what they're going to do tomorrow. How very dare they? They might be eaten. We're more intelligent than that, of course. We've got more responsibilities. We've got more worries on our shoulders, poor little things that we are. We're not allowed to plan. It's abhorrent that you're sitting there working out how to kill yourself and when your funeral and who should be at your funeral and what casket you're going to be put in if that's your thing, or you're going to be cremated. How dare you? It's almost like so embarrassing to talk about the future and who's going to speak and what they're going to sing, what hymns are going to be spoken to at the funeral that you're planning to induce on everybody in your family by your suicide if you're going that route. I'm not advocating suicide. But I don't think we should vilify it either. It's such a personal decision. And I only hope that attention seekers don't get more attention than they actually crave for, because they didn't really mean to do it. There are other ways of getting attention. And this is the fascination. Because ultimately, we all fall into that lake at the end of it, just like that spinning mayfly. The candle doesn't burn for very long, but boy, that mayfly, that candle burns brightly. And that's what I mean about our lives. I really don't want a long, slow, burning, tedious candle, just like a church candle that goes on for days and days and days and days. Metaphorically for us, life is years and years and years and years. And the only prospect, I cannot see the benefit of getting old, except for those who are coming along, because we've got to make room. What benefit is it to anybody that I'm growing old? The government are the only ones who seem to benefit. And those, of course, relatives who like my company and love me, etc. Yes, they're benefiting from being with me and that, but it's such an obligation that they really shouldn't impose. But we do this, we do impose it. If your wonderful partner, the ones you loved, or your children, or somebody you cared deeply about, suddenly decides that, I think I'll make this the last year. I'll have a great year, but this is what I'm planning, and they're serious about it. Why would we need or want to talk them out of it when it's blatantly obvious why that they're deeply unhappy and in a lot of pain. Pain. The only escape from pain is death. That's all. But so many people substitute the death bit for alcohol and drugs. Another form of escapism, isn't it? But ultimately, drugs and alcohol will lead to death anyway. You get liver cirrhosis, you'll have a nasty accident, you'll overdose. All roads do indeed lead to Rome for every man, Jack, and one of us. The point of this video is that we all will shuffle off the mortal coil. And we should all support those gentle souls who've just simply had enough of it all and choose to check out early if that's okay. Sadly, humans being humans are fundamentally very selfish when it comes to somebody you love telling you they want to check out because they've simply had enough. Because, in Boy George's words, it's a selfish thing to do. It's only selfish to those they leave behind. And for many, it's probably the best decision they've made in their life, because it is a 100% selfish decision. See, 95% of your time, your waking time, folks, is you are thinking about you. That's the bottom line. We spend 99% of our time probably thinking about ourselves. Me, 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 me. But woe betide you if you do something entirely for yourself, you selfish sod. Why don't you think about the wife and the kids and the husband you leave behind? This is what we say to addicts who haven't even gone to the extent of committing suicide. It's such a selfish thing to do, to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. It's so self-indulgent. Yes, it is. But the next step for them, if they don't do it the slow way, will be the fast way. Another selfish act. He always or she always was selfish. It's typical of them, killing themselves. Well, more to be pitied than scorned, I think. I remember, in closing, some words of my father when he said to me, when he told me off, actually, it's first and last time he ever slapped my legs. First and last time he ever hit me. Slapped me across the legs when I was about 7 years old. I remember where it happened. It happened in an arcade in Norfolk, in Norwich city of Norwich. He was taking me to the toy shop. And I knocked this man. I said, "Dad, look at him. He's only," it was a black chap actually, sweeping the streets with a broom on a wet day. It was bloody cold, I remember. And I said, "No, look at that man, he must be a failure. He's, either that or he's done something wrong." I was being flippant. It's a punishment. And my dad stopped in his tracks, spun me round so fast and slapped me on my leg so hard. I can remember it like yesterday. And first time he's ever hit me, he pointed at me and said, "Never, never, never knock another man's way of making a living. Ever. Because you don't know. You don't know him, and you don't know what goes on in his head. And when he goes home and takes his wet coat off and dries out and gets some blood flowing into his fingers and his family come and love him, he might sit down on a bench and play the piano and play a Beethoven sonata that would make the angels weep. You don't know. You don't know him. So don't judge. Used to say you can't ever judge anyone without living in their shoes for a while. That's very true. We shouldn't judge lest we be judged. Well, that's a given. But before you do become critical of people, take a good hard look in the mirror and learn that life isn't all about ourselves, me, me, me. The good people do good by doing as much good for other people. And a lot of people feel great by being great to others. And if that's how they get to feel great, that seems to be quite all right in my book. Because great people are the ones who make little people feel great. But let us not be too judgmental about what people do in their lives, because there, but for the grace of your Creator and mine, go you and I. If you want to change something about yourself, change something about yourself. And don't be critical of those people who want to strive to escape the drudgery and misery of pain and disease. Support self-euthanasia in Holland, okay? And petition any way you can for the support of Veritas. Take care, and avoid people who drink the spirits. They're going to meet theirs far quicker if they carry on than they really would want to. Love you all. Catch you tomorrow, God willing.